reports are out there. Nebraska's working to bring back former assistant Phil Simpson back to the staff on the defensive side of the ball, looking at a position likely leading the outside linebackers slash edge rushers moving forward. This is an interesting move, just coming after Nebraska loses defensive coordinator Tony White and defensive line coach Terrence Knighton to Florida State. Jack's assistant linebackers coach Jack Potenza is also gone. And so, this is a move that, Nebraska's bringing back a familiar face. Obviously, he was on the staff in the past. Steve, kind of what's your thoughts here? And obviously, you're more familiar with Simpson from his time at Nebraska.
Yeah, if Nebraska actually pulls it off and brings him back, that's going to be a really huge move for what it means, not only like with the team right now, but for the future on the recruiting trail. Because Phil Simpson was just awesome on the recruiting trail because of his recruiting ability and his connections in the state of Florida and specifically in South Florida around the Miami area. He played a very big role in helping land some really core 2024 class guys from Florida. Ja'Cory Barney, Vincent Shavers Jr., Willis McGahee, Amari Sanders, Larry Tarver. All those guys had connections to Phil Simpson. So I mean, it was a really this is a if they can pull this off, this is going to be a really kind of counterpunch, I guess, to Matt Rhule's program losing some assistants. But then if you gain somebody like Phil Simpson again, I mean that's a huge positive in my opinion. And before he joined Matt Rhule's staff as a defensive quality control guy in 2023, he was a very successful high school coach at Homestead High School. And if that rings a bell, I mean, it should, because that's where four-star receiver Cortez Mills has played his high school career at Homestead. Phil Simpson was actually his head coach for a season, I think, when Cortez was a freshman. So, Tim, I think this is a really big counterpunch from Matt Rhule and a really kind of big move if they could pry him away from Florida State.
For sure. Also gives you an indication that Nebraska has an idea where they're going with the defensive coordinator search. You think this move doesn't get made without an idea of what's happening at the top of that position. Yeah, and obviously that's going to get itself figured out in the near future. But like you said, this is big for recruiting.
Mhm.
Nebraska has had some success in South Florida. Simpson gives them a really good presence down there to continue capitalizing on the relationships they have and some of the momentum they have. On top of the fact that they have multiple guys with relationships in that area. The fact that guys down there are seeing Ja'Cory Barney play the way he is, seeing Willis McGahee play the way he is, seeing Amari Sanders getting early playing time, that all matters. And also this, in this transfer portal day and age, having a guy like Simpson on staff helps or should help Nebraska's odds of keeping Barney, keeping McGahee, keeping Larry Tarver, and keeping Amari Sanders around. Anything can happen in the portal. These guys, it's not a guarantee these guys stick around. And obviously, as we're recording this, things could happen in the next couple hours, if not days, that change what we're saying right now. But fully expecting Simpson to join Nebraska staff. And again, I truly think this is going to help the roster. And also, I think you're seeing a shift, like we've talked about kind of all fall, and what Nebraska is trying to do in terms of recruiting strategy. They're really locking in on the 500-mile radius, and the efforts they were spending in Texas are starting to get dialed back a good bit. They only took two commits, two signees from Texas this past cycle. And you look at across the country, they're increasing efforts in California because of the new Big Ten ties out west, and they're increasing their efforts in South Florida because one, they have multiple players on the roster that they can point to and say, hey, these guys are coming from South Florida and they're coming and playing early at Nebraska. Two,
Mhm.
they have good relationships down there. And three, it's an area that you have to be recruiting. Just on a year over year, no one produces more NFL talent than the South Florida area.
Yeah, I mean it's obvious why Matt Rhule wants to have a real presence there. And it's just the productive players that come out of there every single recruiting class. I mean, it's just obvious why Nebraska wants to have a presence down there. But yeah, you mentioned Potenza, his departure. Tim, rivals own Greg Smith. He reported that Jack Potenza, who coached the Jack linebackers, like you said, had departed the program, but also Josh Bringwell is also out. He was Rob Dvoracek's assistant linebackers coach. So who knows? We'll see if they end up following Tony White and Terrence Knighton to Florida State. Bringwell and Jack Potenza were a couple of assistant coaches who followed Tony Wright from Syracuse in 2023 when they all came to Lincoln. But yeah, according to the reports, Phil Simpson likely coaching outside linebackers, those edge rushers. So yeah, it's just something to watch. Phil Simpson knows about defensive line play. He played for Matt Rhule when Matt Rhule was Temple's defensive line coach in 2006. Sorry. So yeah, I mean he's obviously a good coach. He knows football, and he's going to get his opportunity and likely coaching a position at college at the college level too, which I think will be for his first time doing that. I'm not completely sure, Tim, on what his role at Florida State was last season. But I'm sure it was, with a heavy recruiting, focus down there as well. But Phil Simpson is somebody who knows line of scrimmage play because he played it at Temple, and he was a very good high school coach before he, stepped foot into the college coaching industry. So, yeah, I think this is a huge move. Huge.
Yeah, his role at Florida State somewhat similar to what Jamar Mosey was on the offensive side of the ball for Nebraska, just an assistant that kind of had his hand in a couple of different things on the defensive side of the ball, but was mainly used on the road as a recruiter, where his
Yeah.
relationships are so important. Yeah, I'm expecting Simpson to be one of those get one of those coveted off campus recruiting spots. Nebraska's kind of putting together between him, new wide receivers coach Dakel Shorts,
Hmm.
obviously having Jamar Mosey. Those are three of the best recruiters, young recruiters in the country right now, and that's not just me saying that. That's it's verified. These are guys that have good relationships across the country, that can command attention when they walk into a school, and
Hmm.
have good high school relationships, and should only help Nebraska in their recruiting efforts.
Yeah, and this is just another, if it comes to fruition and Phil Simpson does indeed re-enter Nebraska's coaching staff, this is another kind of positive movement from Matt Rhule's program, because right now outside of the program, I think I'm getting the sense of the fan base is a little bit, taken aback by how this is all going down, and kind of just the shock value of seeing all the Husker players entering the transfer portal and some coaches moving on that you wouldn't expect maybe. So for them to get Dana Holgerson to sign a contract for 2 seasons to come back and be the OC, that was massive. And this is the second massive, I think, positive development from Nebraska with potentially bringing on Phil Simpson again.
No doubt. Yeah, we're just going to do a couple of these videos throughout the offseason, just as news breaks on just like, recapping the news and discussing kind of our thoughts in a short, efficient type of way. So stay tuned. We'll have a couple more of these here the coming days, coming weeks. Keep it locked in here to Inside Nebraska YouTube channel, InsideNebraska.com. Transfer portal is up and running. We've got the transfer tracker up and running as well. So stay tuned for all of that. Visits are getting confirmed. Transfer outs are getting confirmed. We've got a lot going on over there. So we never sleep around here. Transfer portal never stops. We're in the off season, but things never slow down. Nebraska Bowl announcement coming soon as well. So stay tuned for all of that, and we will be back very soon.